Have you ever wondered what it really takes to make a man stay up all night, replaying every moment he had with you, regretting the second he let you go? It's not about sending emotional texts or making dramatic goodbyes. It's about triggering a deep emotional shift in him. When you pull away and create real absence, he starts to feel that uncomfortable void where you used to be. When he sees you changing and growing without him, smiling in pictures he's not part of, it sparks a fear that he's losing you for good. The emotional contrast of watching you be warm and full of life with everyone else, but distant with him, cuts deeper than any words ever could. And when you stop feeding his ego, becoming selectively unavailable, responding slowly, and refusing to react the way you once did, he's left drowning in uncertainty. His mind starts to race. Who's she with? Is she over me? Has she moved on? It's that uncertainty, that emotional scarcity, that makes him lie awake, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. If you've ever wanted to understand how to truly trigger regret in a man's mind, this is the moment you finally learn how. Most people don't realize how powerful absence can be. We get so caught up in the idea of fighting for someone's attention, proving our worth, showing them how much we care, or reminding them what they're missing, that we forget the most emotionally triggering thing we can do is to simply step back. Truly step back, not in a manipulative way, not as a tactic to get them back, but in a way that says, I'm reclaiming my peace, my energy, and my life. See, when a guy walks away, there's often this unspoken expectation in his mind that you'll still be there, that he can come back whenever he wants, that even if he's gone for now, you'll still be emotionally available when he gets bored, lonely, or nostalgic. This mindset doesn't usually come from cruelty, it comes from familiarity, from routine, from the fact that he's grown used to you being a constant presence in his life. And this is where everything shifts. The moment you stop making yourself emotionally available, you trigger something he hasn't felt in a long time. Loss. Not inconvenience, not irritation, real loss. That deep, nagging discomfort that makes a person sit up in bed at midnight and replay conversations, scroll through old photos, and wonder, why does this feel so different this time? Absence works because it does something that words can't. You can send 100 texts trying to explain your worth, write long emotional messages telling him how much he's hurt you, or even cry during phone calls begging him to see your value. But none of that reaches the part of his brain that needs to feel the sting of your absence. Words are intellectual. Absence is emotional. It bypasses logic and goes straight to his gut. He starts to notice the small things first. The silence where your good morning text used to be. The lack of your name popping up in his notifications at random hours. The fact that you're not watching his stories, not liking his posts, not giving him any of the subtle validations he once took for granted. That emotional gap you leave behind, that's where his regret starts to take root. And here's the truth. When you're emotionally available, even after he's pulled away, you're cushioning the blow for him. You're making the breakup easier for him than it should be. He doesn't get to feel the full weight of what it means to lose you because in some way, he still has access to parts of you. He still knows you care. That safety net keeps him emotionally comfortable while you sit there suffering. But when you step back, when you stop reaching out, when you resist the urge to fill the silence with closure-seeking conversations or passive check-ins, that comfort starts to disappear, and in its place something else grows: doubt, anxiety, regret. He starts wondering if you're okay, if you're moving on, if someone else is getting the emotional attention he used to get. And because he doesn't have access to you anymore, his imagination does what it does best. It fills in the blanks, often with worst-case scenarios for his ego. You see, there's a psychological shift that happens when someone realizes they're no longer the center of your emotional world. The emotional safety they once felt starts to feel distant, unreachable, even fragile. That distance, that sense of being cut off, triggers reflection. It forces him to actually sit with the consequences of his decision to pull away from you. And it's usually late at night when it hits him hardest, when distractions are minimal, when the world is quiet, and when his mind finally has space to process everything. That's when the memories start replaying. That's when he starts checking your socials, rereading your last texts, and wondering why he hasn't heard from you. That's when he lies there thinking about the way you used to be there for him, and realizing you're not anymore. You don't need to make big announcements. You don't need to tell him, "I'm pulling back." The most powerful statement is the one you make through your actions, through your absence, through your refusal to fight for attention that should have been given freely. Let him sit with the silence. Let him feel the space you leave behind. That space is where his regret will grow. One of the most powerful emotional triggers you can create in someone who let you go is showing them that you're changing without them. And not just changing in small, subtle ways, but evolving in ways that make them question everything about their decision. See, when a person leaves or pulls away, there's often a hidden, unspoken belief underneath it. The belief that you'll stay the same, that you'll wait, that you'll still be in the same emotional place 6 months from now, just in case they change their mind. They assume they've got time. They assume that when they're ready, you'll still be there, emotionally, physically, mentally, waiting for them to come back. But that assumption is where regret is born. When you start showing signs of real, undeniable growth, it hits them in a place they didn't expect. It forces them to confront a fear they weren't ready for. The fear that life is moving on, and so are you. This doesn't mean you need to fake happiness. It's not about pretending to be over it when you're not. It's about making intentional choices that reflect a genuine shift in your energy. Take up that class you always wanted to try. Start going out more. Surround yourself with people who make you laugh, who remind you that life can still be exciting and full of possibilities. Start dressing for yourself in ways that make you feel powerful and attractive. Change your routine, explore new interests, create new stories. Every time you choose your own happiness over ruminating on him, you're sending a silent but loud message: I am no longer in the same place you left me. And that's when it starts to sink in for him. Because for the first time, he's not just dealing with the idea of losing you, he's dealing with the reality that you're evolving into someone he might not get access to again. The version of you he knew is gone. The woman who used to double text, who used to anxiously wait for his replies, who used to cancel plans just to see him for 10 minutes, she's not there anymore. And every time he checks your social media, every time he hears from a friend about how good you're doing, that message becomes clearer. Now, here's the psychological twist. When someone starts seeing you grow, especially after they've pulled away, it creates an emotional dissonance. On one hand, they might still want to believe that you cared deeply for them, that you were devastated, that losing them left you broken. On the other hand, your actions are saying something entirely different. They're saying, I cared, but I care about myself more. That contrast is what triggers regret on a deeper level. It's no longer about ego. It becomes about real, tangible loss. There's also something else that happens. They start to question their own decision-making. If you're thriving, if you're glowing, if you're stepping into your best self, then what does that say about them for letting you go? It forces them to ask uncomfortable questions. Did I misjudge her value? Did I let go of someone who was about to become the best version of herself? And those are the questions that keep people awake at night. Here's the beautiful part. You're not doing any of this for him. You're doing it for you. That's what makes it so powerful. The energy of genuine growth is unmistakable. It's not calculated. It's not staged. It's real. And that's exactly why it hits harder. Because while he's over there replaying memories and feeling the sting of regret, you're out here writing new chapters of your life. You're showing, not telling, that you're no longer waiting for someone to choose you. You've already chosen yourself. And when that realization fully lands for him, that's the moment he'll stay up all night staring at the ceiling, wondering how he let you slip through his fingers. There's something powerful about emotional contrast. It's one of the most subtle yet devastating emotional triggers you can create in someone who took you for granted. You see, when someone walks away from a relationship or decides to distance themselves from you, they often do it with the belief that you'll always be there in some form, that even if you're upset now, you'll eventually come back to that same place of warmth, love, and attention you always gave them. It's almost like they believe they have a permanent key to your emotional home. But the moment you change the locks, everything shifts. When you begin showing the world your warmth, when you're smiling, engaging, being playful, and fully present with other people, but at the same time giving him almost nothing, it sends a shockwave through his system. He remembers the version of you that was open, giving, and emotionally available to him. The person who laughed at his jokes, who cared about how his day went, who showed up for him emotionally, even when he didn't always deserve it. That's the person he still expects to encounter when he reaches out, when he scrolls through your social media, or when he happens to run into you somewhere. But now you've drawn a line. You're no longer giving him the same energy. You're not cruel, you're not angry, you're not out to punish him, but you're cold where you were once warm, reserved where you were once open, distant where you were once emotionally close. And that contrast, it hurts more than you may realize. Because here's what happens inside his mind. He starts asking himself questions. Why is she like this with me? Did I push her too far? Did she finally get over me? Has she moved on to someone else? The human brain hates emotional inconsistency. We crave certainty. And when we lose the emotional access we once had, it creates a kind of obsession in our minds. We start replaying moments, looking for clues, wondering where the turning point was. Suddenly, all the memories of you being sweet, supportive, and loving come flooding back. But now, those same actions are directed at other people, friends, family, strangers, people online, everyone but him. And when he reaches out, maybe with a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" he's met with polite indifference. Not rudeness, but no spark either. The tone of your messages shifts. Shorter replies, delayed responses, no emojis, no warmth, just surface-level acknowledgement. That emotional coldness doesn't just sting, it triggers something primal. It flips a switch in his brain. Now, instead of being the one in control of the situation, he's on the outside looking in, watching you light up for others while he gets nothing. This is where regret starts to build. It's where he begins to feel the emotional consequences of his actions. And it doesn't stop there. When he sees you laughing in someone else's Instagram story, when he hears from mutual friends that you've been going out, meeting new people, trying new things, that's when the real internal panic starts. He begins wondering, was she always this fun? Was I the one dulling her shine? Did she just finally realize she deserves better? It's like giving him a mirror to his own emotional neglect. He starts to see that the version of you he took for granted wasn't a permanent fixture in his life. It was a choice you made every day to show up, to care, to invest, and now you've chosen differently. What's even more powerful is when you don't explain yourself. You don't send long, emotional texts trying to justify your distance. You don't tell him how much he hurt you. You just show it, silently through your actions. That kind of emotional shift doesn't leave room for him to defend himself or paint you as overreacting. It forces him to sit with the truth of how he made you feel. And when the night falls and the distractions fade, when he's lying in bed with no one texting him goodnight, when the only thing he can hear is the echo of your silence, that's when regret hits the hardest. Because the emotional contrast between what he once had with you and what he has now is undeniable. You know what most people do when they want to make someone regret losing them? They overcompensate. They try too hard to show how great they're doing. They post over-edited selfies, force smiles in group photos, and fill their stories with fake positivity, hoping he'll see it and feel something. But that's not how you trigger real regret. That's not how you get into someone's mind at 1 a.m. when they're staring at their ceiling, replaying everything they did wrong. If you want to genuinely make him stay up all night regretting losing you, you have to remove the ego rewards he's been getting from you all along. Here's the truth. As long as he still feels like he has access to your emotions, he won't feel the full weight of losing you. Think about it. Every time you text him back right away, every time you give him long, thoughtful replies, every time you show him that you're still emotionally invested, you're giving him reassurance that you're still there, still available, still somewhat his. Even if you're trying to sound casual, even if you're trying to be cool about it, the fact that he's getting any emotional energy from you keeps him comfortable. And you will have to get that by entering his life and giving him reassurance that you're still there, still available, still somewhat his. Even if you're trying to sound, he knows that if he wants validation, if he wants to feel attractive or wanted, all he has to do is send a flirty text, drop a miss you out of nowhere, or react to one of your posts, and like clockwork, you'll respond. That's been the pattern, and that's the pattern you need to break. When you start being subtly indifferent, you disrupt his ego supply. He sends a message, and you don't jump to reply. He sends, and you don't jump to reply. He reacts to your story, and you leave it unseen. He sends a long, emotional paragraph, hoping to pull you back in, and you give him a simple, neutral one-liner in return. Not cold, not angry, just unaffected. That's what hits him hardest. Not your silence out of bitterness, not your anger out of frustration, but your calm indifference that says, I've moved past the need for this game. The human ego thrives on attention, on reactions, on knowing it still has power. When he's no longer getting that emotional kick from you, he's going to feel an uncomfortable emptiness where your validation used to live. That's when the overthinking starts. That's when he replays your last few interactions, wondering if he said something wrong, wondering why you've gone quiet, wondering if there's someone else. And the more he wonders, the more he regrets not valuing you when he had the chance. But here's where most people mess this up. They'll go silent for a few days and then break down the second he shows a little interest again. He'll send a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" And suddenly, they're back to sending long messages, pouring out feelings, trying to explain their worth. Don't fall into that trap. Consistency in your indifference is what makes it powerful. It's not about playing games. It's about showing through your actions that you no longer place him at the center of your emotional universe. What makes this even more psychologically effective is when you remain polite and kind through it all. If he asks how you are, give a brief, positive answer. "I'm good, thanks. Hope you're well too." That's it. No long updates, no emotional vulnerability, no reminiscing about the past. Just a cool, casual acknowledgement that he's there, but without opening any doors for deeper conversation. Because the truth is, when you start behaving like someone who doesn't need his validation anymore, he starts to wonder if he even matters to you at all. That's when the regret begins to take root. It's in those quiet moments when he's sitting alone, scrolling through your old messages, replaying your laughs, remembering the times when you used to care so deeply. That's when it'll hit him. The realization that you're no longer emotionally accessible will sink in. And the more you maintain that emotional distance, the longer it will haunt him. You don't need dramatic goodbyes. You don't need to post cryptic quotes about self-love or healing. Your lack of reaction speaks louder than any of that. Because silence, paired with calm indifference, leaves space for his imagination to fill in the blanks. And trust me, the stories he tells himself in that silence will be far more punishing than anything you could ever say. Let him feel the absence of your energy. Let him wonder if someone else is now getting the parts of you he took for granted. Let him sit with the thought that maybe, just maybe, this time you're really done. You know what's one of the hardest pills for someone to swallow after they've lost you? It's not the silence. It's not the unanswered texts. It's not even seeing you out with someone else. At least, not right away. It's seeing you genuinely happy without them. That's the emotional dagger they never expect. And trust me, it cuts deeper than any words you could say. When someone expects you to be miserable after they leave, they build this little narrative in their head. They imagine you curled up at home, missing them, stalking their social media, waiting for their next text, hoping for some small crumb of attention. They comfort themselves with the idea that you're suffering without them. That way, even if they miss you, their ego gets to stay intact. They get to believe, I could have her back anytime I want. But when that illusion gets shattered, when they see the opposite of what they expected, that's when the regret starts to seep in. It begins the moment he checks your story or scrolls past your feed and sees your smile. Not the forced, staged kind of smile, but the real, effortless one that says, I'm doing just fine without you. Maybe you're out with friends. Maybe you're laughing at something silly. Maybe you're dressed up, looking radiant, walking through life like someone who's excited about what's next. That image will freeze him for a second. He'll pause and stare. He'll replay it more times than he'll admit. And the first thought that'll hit him is, wait, is she really over me? That single question will spiral into 100 others. When did she start looking this happy again? Is there someone new? Was she pretending all along? Was I not as important to her as I thought? This is where regret really takes hold. Not because you tried to make him jealous, not because you posted something toxic, but because you're radiating genuine happiness that he's no longer part of. There's something about seeing someone thrive without you that's profoundly unsettling. It challenges everything we want to believe about our importance in someone's life. And here's the thing, he might not even want to get back together. Not yet, at least. But that regret, That unsettled feeling will creep in late at night when he's scrolling, alone, overthinking, wondering how the person he once had in his life is now smiling in photos, looking like they've never been lighter, freer, or more excited about life. And it doesn't stop there. It continues when mutual friends mention how great you've been doing. When he hears about the trip you booked, the new project you started, or the hobbies you've picked up, every update becomes another reminder that you're creating a beautiful chapter that he's no longer written into. And I want you to really hear this. It's not about faking it. This isn't about putting on a mask or forcing happiness just to prove a point. That's exhausting. And honestly, people can sense when it's fake. The real power comes when you genuinely start choosing joy. When you decide to stop making your life a waiting room for someone who couldn't see your value the first time round. Because the truth is, your glow will be different when it's authentic. Your energy shifts when you're genuinely living for yourself and not reacting to someone else's actions. That's the version of you that makes people stop in their tracks. That's the version of you that lingers in his mind at midnight, making him stare at the ceiling, wondering how he ever let you go. And here's what's beautiful about this. By the time he's sitting there, caught in that storm of regret, you won't even be doing it for him anymore. You'll be doing it for you, for your own peace, for your own happiness, for your own life. And maybe, just maybe, the next time he thinks about you, it won't be with the comfort of knowing you're still waiting. It'll be with the sharp, sinking realization that you're already gone. When someone loses you, there's one thing that hits harder than almost anything else: realizing they no longer have easy access to you. It's human nature to crave what feels scarce and unattainable. The more available something is, the more we take it for granted. And the more it disappears from our grasp, the more we obsess over it. This is especially true when it comes to people and emotion. When he feels like you're always there, answering his texts the moment they come in, picking up every phone call, showing up when he asks, he falls into this mental pattern where he assumes you'll always be there. Your presence becomes predictable and, sadly, undervalued. But when you start becoming selectively unavailable, everything changes. I'm not talking about playing childish games or acting passive-aggressive. He's not just saying, "Hey, we haven't really talked about much lately. How about we pop into the park? I'm scared. I'm sick. I want to get myself healthy. I've got my back. I've got a pen relaxant. I've got my back pain. I've got my back. I've got my back pain. I've got my back medicine. I've got my back recovery. I've got my back pain relaxant. I've got my back pain recovery. I've got my back medicine. I've got my back recovery. I've got..." This isn't about manipulating someone. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, your focus. It's about making conscious decisions about when and how you engage with someone who hasn't shown up for you in the way you deserve. When he reaches out with a lazy "hey" at midnight, you don't jump to reply. When he sends that "what are you up to" after days of silence, you don't treat it like the invitation back into your heart. Instead, you pause, you breathe, you give yourself permission to not answer immediately, or maybe not at all. This isn't coldness, it's self-respect. It's teaching him that your time is valuable and that you're no longer emotionally on standby for him. The power in this shift is enormous, because the moment you stop being easily reachable, he starts noticing your absence in ways he hasn't before. He starts wondering, why the instant replies have stopped, why the green bubble doesn't light up with your name as often, why you're suddenly somewhere else, doing something else, maybe with someone else. And that's when the mind games start, but not from you, from him. He begins scrolling back through old conversations, rereading the messages you used to send him, the long, thoughtful replies where you gave him your heart in words. He starts refreshing his messages, checking if maybe you've seen his last text, but just haven't answered. He opens social media late at night, scrolling to see if you're online, if you've posted anything new, if there's any sign of you. But what he finds instead is silence, space, mystery. That silence speaks louder than any angry confrontation you could have had. It triggers that deep, unsettling question in his mind. Is she done with me? Did she move on? Is she talking to someone else? Why am I not getting the version of her I used to have? The more he questions it, the more restless he becomes. This is when the regret starts brewing. This is when he starts playing back every decision that led him to this point, wondering at what moment he lost you for real. And the beauty of it all? You're not sitting there trying to craft the perfect message to make him jealous. You're not chasing his attention. You're just living, protecting your energy, prioritizing your peace. And that energy, your absence, becomes the loudest message you'll ever send. He'll stay up at night, staring at his phone, debating whether to send another message, typing, deleting, typing again, overthinking every interaction, wondering if you're still angry, or worse, if you've stopped caring altogether. And let me tell you something, for a man's ego, the idea that you've stopped caring is terrifying. Indifference shakes him more than any emotional outburst ever could. Because as long as you were angry, frustrated, or emotional, it meant he still had power over you. But when you go quiet, when you become unavailable, he feels that power slipping through his fingers. The irony here is that by letting go of trying to control his response, you actually trigger the most powerful emotional response in him. Not by pushing, not by explaining, not by begging, but by pulling back, reclaiming your emotional space, and letting him sit with the discomfort of losing access to you. That's when regret becomes real. When it's 2 a.m. and he's lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of all the ways he could have done things differently, just to avoid this feeling. And that's when he'll realize losing you wasn't just about losing a relationship. It was about losing access to something rare, something valuable, something he can't just reach for anymore, because you finally understood your worth.